Okay. So yeah, Myra and I are gonna just talk about what we did up at Silvertip this year. Myra, feel free to interject whenever you have something to say. Um, so yeah, without further ado, here we go. So just for folks that may not be familiar, Silvertip is in the Bob Marshall Wilderness, which is outlined in red there in northwest Montana, and that's the rough location of the peak there. So here's a closer up satellite view of it. And it has it's divided into two caving areas here, the North Cirque and the South Cirque. And it's Silvertip Peak is here, and then Goat Mountain is over here. And there's a couple of saddles that you have to cross to get to the South Cirque. The Silvertip cave system, which is at about 10 miles long, is all in the North Cirque. All the entrances, I should say, are in the North Cirque. And that's where pretty much since the 70s, the focus has been on the North Cirque. There's been a lot of activity in the South Cirque, but no system is developed other than some of the caves that we went into this year. So this is the hiking, when you hike into the North Cirque, how you come up the Silvertip Creek drainage here, and then kind of bushwhack and cross country hike for a mile or so. And then the camp is down here at the base of the cliff. It's about a 13-mile hike in, and then to get over to the South Cirque is about another 2 miles, maybe only a mile. So here's kind of a trip overview. Myra organized the whole thing. I think we had 10 participants. There's all their names. I have a lot of great photos in this, and then Myra's going to be showing more later, and those were all taken by Irina. So props to her for coming along and taking a bunch of great photos while she helped us. We went for 2 weeks, July 25th through the 8th. And when going into it, we weren't really sure how we were going to divide up our time. But at the end of the day, when we all met at the Packer drop, we decided that we would go to the South Cirque for the first week. And on the trip, we got about 4,380 feet of survey, which doesn't sound like a lot for being up there for 2 weeks, but most of what we surveyed was either virgin or new. So that's exciting that, I shouldn't say new, but unsurveyed passage. So that's exciting that we added 4,000 feet of survey to the map up there. So here's the hike in. It follows the creek, so it's pretty flat for most of it until the very end. There's several creek crossings. This year we had goats pack us in. So Jason Belinsky and I hiked in a few days early with the goats. And the goats were good. It took us quite a while. This is Heartbreak Hill, which is a hill right in the beginning of the hike. And this was probably our biggest obstacle. There's a lot of deadfall, and the goats didn't want to jump over the logs because they were a little too weighed down. And Jason and I basically goat herded for a few days, but I grew very fond of the goats by the end of it. So week one, the South Cirque. So we all meet up at the Packers drop and we hike over to the South Cirque. This is a view looking south into the Cirque. We have Lone Butte here, and then Turtle Head Mountain is along this ridge line further down in the distance. So yeah, as you can see, there's a lot of limestone and not a lot of vegetation. This is our hike from the North Cirque over the saddle to the South Cirque. It's dropping down into the South Cirque. All right, so here's another satellite image. The 3 caves that we kind of focused on this year, went into while we were in the South Cirque, were Glissade, Moonray, and Greenhouse. And you can see our camps was situated only a few hundred feet really from Moonray Cave. And then Greenhouse was only a short hike away. So this is the route we took from the North Cirque to the South Cirque, which goes going up on the north side is pretty straightforward, but then you drop pretty vertically down into the South Cirque. And we went that way. That's the way I went the year prior with Hans, and that was kind of the only way I knew. And then I think some other folks had some input into it. At the end of the day, we realized that was completely wrong when Brian Ginling joined us later and told us to go via the East Saddle, which is a much, much nicer hike. So here's our camp in the South Cirque. We had a nice little stream to get water from and wash some of our caving clothes. And yeah, it's just beautiful over there. Pretty sparsely vegetated. some of us sitting around the campfire here, or I guess just the cooking area. A beautiful picture of Lone Butte. And that's pretty much the view from camp. And this was our crew for while we were in the South Cirque the first week there. Cool. So Moonray Cave. Moonray is what we mostly focused on. Last year, or the year prior to 2018, I guess it was, I went up and I went over to the South Cirque for a few days with Hans Bodenhammer, and he got me kind of really excited about the South Cirque and suggested that Moonray may have some more cave to be found in it. So that was just kind of, I was hooked on it and wanted to go up there. This is a rough history of the cave, to my knowledge, I should say. If anybody has any more history or any more trips that they know of, I'd love to hear about them, and feel free to chime in. But yeah, so in 1980, it was discovered by Doug Powell, and they originally named it Southside Booty Cave. The next year, him and Hans went up to explore it, and Hans wrote a great article in the 2004 Alpine Karst. And reading that article is what just really got me excited. And then they went back in 1985, I believe it was, and they surveyed the cave. You'll see, I'll show you guys a map later of it, and that's from that 1985 survey. And then to my knowledge, from the 1980s until 2001, it really wasn't visited. And in 2001, there were some folks that went up there, and they went into Moonray to push some leads, and they they pushed a few leads and nothing came of it, essentially. And there's a few articles listed here about that as well. And then, yeah, 2019 is when I was up there with Hans, and he said Moonray would be a good cave to push, and that's all I needed to hear. And this photo on the right is in one of the passages in Moonray. It's one of the only like formations this nice we found in the cave anyway. It's a really cool orange color, and then there's some really massive soda straws. So here is the profile view of the cave. As you can see, there's 6 entrance drops here to get down to the ABZ hallway, which is essentially, it's similar to the North Cirque, and then it's a big trunk passage that has a lot of infeeders. And all of these drops are under 100 feet. And then the last drop is actually pretty spectacular. It's a 137-foot big open air pit. All right, yeah, so here it is. And basically Moonray is a series of, the entrance anyway, a series of pits connected by heinously tight, nasty squeezes. Jason, as soon as he got into the cave, this little entrance section, he said, is it really already this tight? So that just kind of sets the mood. And that's probably, in addition to most of the caves of the South Cirque being more vertical in nature and you having to haul all the rope up there, and them being so kind of just nasty and tight to get into, that's, I think, what kept a lot of people away in the years previous, when there was 10 miles of cave on the North Cirque to explore. Here's a plan view of the cave. You can kind of see the main passage here a lot better. Most of this main passage is walking. The ABZ hallway is pretty significant in size, especially for Silvertip, I think. And these are just some of the leads I had labeled when we went up there last year. And so, well, I just wanted to get into the cave and see, kind of explore it and see if there was potential. And I think that there's all kinds of potential. This is a very not to scale rough drawing that I just threw together really quick. But this red line on the right coming down from the middle of the screen is about where Blood Cave crosses into the South Cirque underground, of course. And that, the big thing has been connecting the North Cirque system to an entrance on the South Cirque. So I hope with further exploration of Moonray, that's kind of what we can eventually end up doing, if it was to connect. And you can see Moonray here. So here's the cave that currently exists, and here's what we are sure exists. We just have to find it. So day one, the first day we had a half a day. Once we got to the South Cirque and set up camp, we had a half a day left. So Myra, Tristan, and I went into the Owl's Bows, which is right here. And there's there's 4 drops up into it. And then it is a very short, but very tight and sinuous section of canyon passage. And it slightly downtrends. Myra and I both found it easier to go head first, but that does, I don't know, it is uncomfortable to go head first into it. But you know something's on the other side and you just kind of slide right through. But it's a pinch point for sure. It's hard to get gear through there, especially if you have anything other than just normal caving gear. If you have vertical gear, if you have gear for further exploration in the cave, that kind of thing, a bunch of survey gear. And yeah, so we got down to the Ausbaus to really make sure that we could get through it because we had heard so many terrible things about it. And we did get through it. We went out that day, and the next day we finished rigging to the ABZ hallway and explored some passages. The first passage we explored was this one up here to the right. I don't know if where we went is beyond the extent of this map or if they just missed some leads, but this passage branches a lot, actually. And Jason had told us about a short climb that was like the most promising lead in the cave. And so we were off to find that. And I think that he said it was up in this passage, or this is where we went regardless, to look for this climb. We found a short climb and we did it. But upon doing the climb and getting to the top, we realized we couldn't fit through the hole at the top, even though we could see sizable passage on the other side. So that is there if we ever really wanted to push ourselves. There's that lead back there. But on the way back out, I checked a lead and I went a ways, couldn't fit. So I came back to get Myra. Myra went up there and slid right through. He called it the Horn Family Hall. And it is probably the tightest passage I've ever been in a cave. And I struggled with it. But it kept going, and Myra kept going and said that it ended in a short aid climb that needed done. So, we found what we were looking for back there, which was going passage. So that was exciting. And then on our way out that day, we went down this lower passage here to about where the passage stops on this map. It kind of walks and then it quickly diminishes into a hands and knees crawl and then eventually a belly crawl. In that belly crawl, we stopped at and talked about it, and I went ahead and pushed past, and it ended up opening up, which was really exciting, into like standing room, and it split a bunch of different ways. And none of that's on the map. It had been explored. We saw a single set of footprints in one of the passages. So it may have been just Hans or Doug in their original exploration that ran down the passages past this point. I'm not really sure, but there's a ton of cave, and that's kind of where we focused our effort for the rest of the trip, was down this lead. This area in the blue is headed, it's still very far away, obviously, but it is a passage that's trending to the east towards Blood Cave, and we did not get to look at that in 2020. So that's definitely a passage we are going to go back this year, and that's a passage that we'll want to check out. Here's some of my notes from our trip this year. So this is a lot of what I just said, but down here is where we pushed past, and we saw an E12 was the last survey station we could find, which kind of confirmed that this is the furthest point of their survey, was right in that tight belly crawl. But past it, like I said, it opens up and branches a bunch. This is obviously not to scale, and just a quick sketch. But we did find several leads back there, and we found the very, very promising lead that Jason was talking about, which is up here, the Pool of Dreams. And you come out to a lake maybe 15 to 20 feet in diameter, and then there's just a massive walking passage, maybe 30 feet up, a stair-stepped climb. We didn't have any climbing gear, and it did look like it may need some protection. So we did not do the climb this year, but it is the most exciting thing we saw. It's very inviting walking passage. So we definitely hope to get into that this year. And then some of these lower passages here, C and F. F is this main passage is a big walking passage that quickly diminishes into mud. So does C. And so it kind of seems like some of these lower levels are just mud filled, and may eventually just end in a pinch of mud, but in a mud plug. But neither of them, to our exploration this year anyway, ended. They just turned into those muddy crawls and kind of kept going. So that's definitely something we're going to want to check again as well. Yeah, so when we were over there, we ended up taking 5 trips into Moonray Cave. 3 of those were for rigging and exploration. We did 2 survey trips after we kind of got feels for the cave. And that was all in this lower passage that I mentioned that I have sketched out here. The shaded area is kind of what we surveyed. And yeah, we got 1,500 feet of a new survey. So that is cave that, like I said, we'd seen footprints, so it has been explored by a few people, but it wasn't on the map. So that was exciting. Glissade Cave is, Hans mentioned, he thinks it's one of the infeeders into Moonray. And so Jason took some folks up there to check it out. And Jason, Irina, Tristan, Georgia, I don't know who all went up there, but they went up there and they came back just ecstatic. They found all kinds of cave that they didn't think was there, and they were really excited. So that's awesome that Glissade keeps going past what we thought. We thought it was just maybe a pit or two that stopped. Hans did explore it back in the day with Doug, and there was some old pitons, and I think they went down pretty far, but the map that Jason and Hans made in the 2000s did not show the extent of the cave. And then off to the right here, this is another South Cirque cave, which is very similar to Moonray. It's a big multi-drop system, or a big multi-drop entrance series, I guess, to the cave that we haven't found yet. But one team entered there, and I had told them that it was rigged all the way to the bottom. They found out it was not rigged all the way to the bottom. So they poked around a little bit and then ended up coming out. But Greenhouse, to get to the bottom of it, is going to be a big goal next year as well. There's some water down there, and we don't know if it ends or if there's maybe some leads down there. So that's definitely something that we want to investigate. It's also one of the closest known caves. Spin Shaft, Greenhouse, and Moonray are all pretty close, and probably connected. It just needs to be connected. So while we were running around in Moonray, just messing around, essentially, Brian actually came very close to doing the dream of connecting the North and South Cirque. There's a cave up there, Run to Blood Cave, that he was pretty excited about. A lot of airflow coming out of it, and he ended up mapping around 300 feet of passage, and it is very close to connecting into Blood. If it will, or if it'll pinch first, who knows? But that was a pretty exciting event as well. And then Jason and some others took several ridge walking trips, and they just documented some more features in short caves. And yeah, that's kind of what we did on the South Cirque the first week. One of these Moonray trips, we actually hiked. We were so excited by what we found when we went back to the North Cirque. Riley, Irina, and myself did a day trip over, went into Moonray, and then hiked back to the North Cirque. And we got about 700 feet of survey that day, which was exciting. And just to show you, this is the profile of Greenhouse here. And you can see it's just another massive series of pits that goes down. And you can see there's a couple waterfalls down here. That's that water I was talking about that we would like to get down to and see where it goes. And yeah, that's really all I have for you. So Myra, I don't know if you want to take over.
Oh yeah. Oh, now that's perfect timing. I was just about to share a couple of fun facts about Moonray. So I noticed in the chat a couple of people are wondering or just kind of intrigued by the name the Owl's Bells. And the reason behind that is because there's a small calcified, it's a mouse skeleton, right? At the end of the Owl's Bells. So it's like you're inside an owl's stomach. And that's probably to scale as well. It does feel like you're in a rather small animal's intestines throughout that whole experience. Yes, it is a mouse, says Brian. I wanted to make sure it wasn't like a shrew or a vole or anything like that. The second fun fact about Moonray is the rigging was really fun that existed in the cave from before. And I've heard some horror stories from Hans about it, including after dropping, I believe, the third pit in that picture there. He was on his way out and just kind of out of curiosity yanked the single piton they had rappelled on, and it just came straight out of the wall, like with no force at all. They just been hanging on something that had been kind of like, yeah, balanced in the crack just perfectly, but not pounded in or in a constricting crack or anything like that. And we did find some pretty other interesting examples of rigging. A lot of old SMC hangers that have since been recalled, and yeah, they're awful. Snap under body weight sort of thing, and a bunch of leaper hangers, same sort of story. And then the cherry on top was really a self drive that somebody pounded and then took a piton, a lost arrow, and pounded it into the self drive instead of putting a bolt in. So it's just a sleeve with a piton pounded through it, which was great. Definitely a lot of history in there. That's kind of interesting, a little bit funny. But yeah, the second part of our trip, we went over to the North Cirque actually. And let's see, Ellen, am I set up to share my screen?
Should be.
Could be. Oh, yes. Cool. Awesome. So we went over to the South Cirque, and our goal in this trip was to kind of poke around Easy Out and mainly clean up some leads down there, which doesn't sound very fun, but really there are a bunch of super good leads in Easy Out. And part of the reason that nobody's been in there is there was kind of an Owls Bells like entrance that was very discouraging, but since then it has widened out a little bit. So yeah, it's much easier to get large parties, survey parties in and out. And we surveyed a little bit in there. We did a little bit of work down in the sewers, and we actually found a going passage there. Let me see if I can actually pull up a map of the system. That would probably be helpful. So yeah, we poked through Easy Out, and hold on just a second. I am a terrible multitasker. Okay, here we go. Can people see the map?
I don't think so.
Okay, let me see. There we go. Okay, sorry. So here's the map. And here's Easy Out Cave. So most of the work we did in the system was cleaning up all these little leads down here. And a lot of them kind of went for a ways and then stopped, just classic kind of picking things up. This lead actually did go for a while. It's still unmapped. There are footprints back there and there's some carbide on the walls, but there's no sign that it was ever like really surveyed. So it's sort of like Moonray. We're not quite sure what's up with that, but definitely worth resurveying, kind of an interesting prospect. A couple of parties also went above into kind of this get out, easy out zone and started checking out all of these little leads in here, and also found like passage that goes and things that are interesting, things that end in climbs. So definitely like lots of stuff going on there. But you know, the easy stuff is starting to get picked off. So at one point during the trip, I had to get some cell service. And so I actually dropped a team off at Easy Out, and then I started walking up the ridge to manage to get a signal. And I actually decided to just kind of walk up the ridge that was close to Easy Out Cave because I was lazy and I didn't want to walk up to the peak or anything like that. So I started walking up the ridge, and I was looking at my phone, like seeing if I had a signal yet. And looking at my phone and walking across the karst is not really a good combination. And I almost fell into this pit, right? That's kind of on the top of this ridge that sits above Easy Out. And when I got to, let's see, I'll pull up my map again here. So when I walked up to the top of this ridge, I found this enormous, well, not enormous, but pretty big pit for a Silvertip pit in the ground. And there was a little bit of a 15-foot nuisance down climb. So I down climbed. I didn't have any caving gear with me. So I had my phone flashlight and I kind of looked down like the side of the pit where it looked like it was heading, and it was, you know, dark. It looked like a pretty good lead. So anyways, took care of my business on my phone, called my school. Ended up, I needed to take a second day of doing that because I was trying to get all of these administrative tasks done in the wilderness, right? So Georgia and I go up the second day to this ridge line, and we get to the cave. It's raining, right? So I wasn't really planning on bringing a lot of gear because I didn't think it was going to go anywhere, but I did bring my cave suit because I wanted to wear it as a rain jacket when I walked back because it was getting pretty nasty. We had a lot of inclement weather on the trip. But anyways, I rigged the pit, we dropped it down, and it opened up into a really big room for Silvertip standards, probably about 60 feet long and 40 feet tall. Just a big canyon passage style room. And yeah, we were super stoked about that. Really clean rock. Unlike a lot of what you see in Silvertip, it didn't look muddy at all. So we started kind of heading down this canyon passage, and it started getting smaller and a little bit chossier and not as nice. But it kept on going, and it kept on going for a ways. And eventually we got turned around by nuisance trap. So we went back to camp. We told everybody about this great cave we had found with all this walking passage in it that was going to be a breeze to survey, right? So the next day we bring back some survey teams, and we start to realize how crappy this cave really is, right? So we named the cave Peace Out, right? Because the nomenclature in Silvertip is to name the exits and entrances of the system with an out afterwards. So like an out suffix. So you have easy out and sneak out and get out. And now there's a peace out too, but it hasn't connected yet. So that's why it's Peace Cave. But anyways, we started surveying it, and it gets really tight. It gets to be probably about 2 feet wide and probably about 7 feet tall, but it's this really kind of crazy, like ridged passage almost. So like you're constantly kind of having to twist your body around. It's not difficult to get through, but it's just there's a lot of that, and it's sort of uncomfortable. And it also gets rather muddy. So on one of the days that we brought back a survey team, I was showing the cave to Riley, who had just gone in, and I was talking about how chossy it was. And just with perfect timing, I put my hand against the wall, and I pulled off this like cantaloupe-sized rock that just split open in front of us, right, just by touching the wall. And I ended up doing so much gardening in that cave to the point that in some areas I was actually like mildly concerned about like plugging up the passage with all the gardening that I was doing, because it's just so chossy and full of broken rock. Um, so anyways, on one of the earlier trips, I'm not going through this very cohesively, I'm sorry, but um, we ended up running out of rope, right? So the whole family came back on the last day we were there to with new rope to drop that last pit and see what was beyond. So on that survey day, Tristan and Dustin and Irina continued surveying the upper portion of the cave, while Riley and I surveyed the bottom. And then Georgia and Philip went off into the unknown to go bolts and rig, right? And Riley and I, in one day, I think we managed to survey 240 feet or something like that of just absolutely heinous, super tight, ridiculously muddy, probably one of the most muddy caves I've ever been in, passage. And it does end in kind of a cool room that has like a big calcified rat in it, which is kind of interesting because like it's way down there. And at this point, the cave is surveyed to 11,048 feet deep and 300 or 11,048 feet long and 349 feet deep. So that's what you see here on the map. We don't have any pictures of it because it was such a terrible cave to be in. Nobody wanted to stand around taking pictures. But it is kind of cool to have a new find on the North Cirque. Like Jason has been ridge walking this area for a long time trying to find stuff and hasn't really had a lot of success. And then I managed to actually almost fall into a cave while not looking for caves, which is a little ironic. But so I don't have the line plot of the system here, which I would like to have. But you'll just have to trust me that Easy Out Cave kind of follows this ridge right here. And this draw in between is where the entrance is. So the entrance to Easy Out is down here, and the cave kind of twists and winds up this direction. So we're really close to it. We're like 200 feet away. It does have a very consistent trend to it. And so I think there really is a high probability that we're going to connect the system. The last explored point of the cave keeps on going. It's not like nice walking passage, but it would be cool to connect it in and kind of, have, it would be the second highest elevation entrance in the system. So it would be kind of cool to have that happen. But yeah, that was the second big find of our trip. The first being kind of reopening some of the lost stories of Moonray and the South Cirque, and then the latter part of the trip really focusing on Peace Cave. And what we're thinking is that likely some of the upper entrances and easy out, or sorry, upper leads and easy out that we surveyed, some of those climbs probably is what this connects into, right? Because there is a lot of unexplored passage there that we're not quite sure where it goes. So hopefully that would connect into Peace Cave, and we'll have this nice, beautiful section of cave connecting into the system. So yeah, I know Dustin wanted me to share some photos of just the trip and us in caves. So can everybody see the photos there? Cool. All right. So this was in Friesen. When we got over to the South Stirk, we actually, or sorry, the North Stirk, we actually just took a day sport caving because people are kind of tired, and also I didn't want to drag people through easy out on the first day going over there because it's not a whole lot of fun necessarily, even now going through some of the tight stuff in there. So we went into Friesen, which is a cool cave. And it's got all these wicked cool ice formations in it. I'd actually never been in Friesen before, but you know, I recalled briefly from looking at a map once where it went, but we figured it out all right. It is a very straightforward cave. Here's all of us at the bottom of Lake Lowry, kind of checking out. Via's taking goofy photos. And yeah, I mean, these are honestly some of the best photos. All these are photos Irina took, and there's some of the best photos we have of Silvertip, I think. There's the big entrance drop into Friesen. So if you're considering going to Silvertip next year, you know, this is what it looks like. It's a really cool place for sure. You know, this is what Peace Cave looks like. Just add in a bunch of mud and make it so you have to hunch over while you're walking. So that's kind of unfortunate, but yeah, I think those are the only pictures we have of being in caves. Oh no, here's some more. So Irina and Riley and Tristan went into Blood Cave towards the end of our trip just to take some photos, also because a couple of them actually really wanted to see Blood Cave. So here is the notorious Blood waterfall formation in a couple different exposures. And yeah, just more of that crazy red stuff everywhere. In recent years, Blood Cave has gotten a lot of exploration. In 2018, we actually mapped, I believe it was a couple miles of blood. It was quite a bit. Actually, Hans has just finished drafting the map for it. So now we do have essentially a completed map of Blood Cave to its, you know, fullest explored extent. Which is not the whole cave at all, but that's okay. But yeah, super pretty formations, really cool stuff. I've rambled for a while now, so I'll probably turn it back over to Dustin, and if anybody has any questions, they're free to shoot them off, and we'll do our best to answer.
Yeah, I don't really have anything else either, so that's pretty much it. I will say the gunshot formations in Blood Cave where the red's just kind of dripping down the wall. There's a picture in there. We did find a few of those in Moonray, so that was cool. Hopefully hinting at the fact that it connects, right?
Geological foreshadowing is